Hi everyone! I thought it might be nice for some of you to have a go at making some Welsh cakes this weekend in time for St David's Day on Monday, the 1st of March. So, I'm going to make some Welsh cakes today and I'm going to talk you through how I do it, and then I'm going to put the video and the recipe onto the website. So if you'd like to have a go, you can, okay? So there's some important things we need to remember before we're going to cook, okay? We need to have washed our hands. Now I've just done that, so I'm ready to go. It's very, very important. Now it's also really important that you've washed any of the surfaces that you're going to use, especially with Welsh cakes, because as you'll see a little bit later, we have to roll out the pastry on a worktop. So it's really important that you've given them a bit of a wipe, so that's really important. Also important to have an apron on to protect your clothes. As you see, I've got my special Welsh one on ready, just especially for Welsh cakes. And then it's important that you have an adult around to help you, because especially for the part where you're cooking the Welsh cakes, it can get quite tricky and it gets very, very hot, the pan. Okay, so it's important that you don't do this by yourself. You need an adult with you, right? So I found myself a recipe first. Now the recipe tells you everything that you're going to need. Okay, so it's good to be prepared, and that's what I've done today. I've prepared everything that I'm going to need ready to show you. Okay, so I've got my big mixing bowl and my wooden spoon. And if I move the camera down slightly, you'll see all my ingredients. I've got my raisins ready, I've got my flour ready, I've got my sugar, and then I've got my egg all whisked up ready. Okay, so I've looked at my recipe and I've seen what I need to do and I've prepared everything. Okay, so then I need to follow the steps of the recipe. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a little look at this recipe that I've created from my recipe that you could use. Okay, so first of all, we need to sieve the flour. Now that means to sieve the flour, small holes in my sieve, like this. Okay, I've got my flour measured ready. Okay, I'm going to sieve my flour through the sieve into the bowl. Okay, just like this. So you can pour it all in, and if you need to, you can use a wooden spoon to help you. And you can give the sieve a little shake, and you'll see that it'll all fall to the bottom of the bowl into the sieve. What this does is it adds some air to the flour, and it makes it a special kind of texture and consistency ready for Welsh cakes in particular. Okay, there's quite a bit of flour here. Okay, so my flour is all sieved into the bowl. And my next step, number 2, is to rub the butter into the flour. Okay, so I've got my butter measured out here. I've left mine out of the fridge for a while just so it's a little bit softer to the touch, okay, because that makes the next a little bit easier. Okay, so put the butter in with the flour, you can see, and we use our fingers to rub it all together. Okay, this is a messy bit. This is a bit messy, but you'll see after a little while that the mixture comes together nicely, and it makes a little bit like breadcrumbs. You'll feel on your fingers this is a little bit like breadcrumbs if you've ever used those before. Okay, so you need to go for a little while with this to make sure all of the butter and all of the flour are rubbed in together. Okay, so now you can see what it looks like when you've mixed all the flour and the butter all together with your fingers. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my recipe. I'm going to look at what number 3 is. Add sugar. Okay, so I've looked at my recipe beforehand and I've measured out my sugar ready to go. I'm going to add it in to my flour and my butter breadcrumbs that I've just made. I'm going to use a wooden spoon to just mix it all in to make sure there's no lumps in the sugar. All mixed together. see the sugar almost disappears. You almost can't see where it is. Okay. Let's have a look what number 4 is on our recipe. Currants. Okay. Now, I don't know whether you like currants. This is what a currant looks like. In my class, we love currants. We have them for our snack in the morning sometimes. Okay, so I know that the children in my class are going to be putting currants in their Welsh cakes, like me. But you don't have to. Okay, it's only if you like them, if you like the taste. Mix them in. All mixed in. Okay, have a look at number 5. Whisk the egg, which I've already done, just with a fork, and mix it in. So, the cleverest way to do this, I found, is to make a little dip in the middle like that. So you're making a little hole in the middle. And then, if you put your egg in a jug, like I have, it's super easy to just pour it in the hole in the middle. Like that. And then, use a wooden spoon to mix it in. It's going to start to look a little bit different now. Okay. It's going to start to stick together. This is the part where I find that it's best to get your hands in, okay? Because with your hands you can feel whether the mixture is sticking together well with the egg, okay? And I can feel that mine is. Because if you find that it's a little bit dry and it's not sticking together like it should, this is how it should stick together like a ball, okay? If you're finding that it's a little bit dry, you can add a little bit of milk or water here, okay? Only a little tiny bit. I would recommend just adding it a tiny bit at a time, okay? So that you can always add a little bit more, can't you? But you can't take it away once you put it in. So I always find it's a little bit easier to go tiny bit by tiny bit with milk. I find is the best, okay? But mine is feeling, I think, like it's not going to need any milk, which is lucky. Just adding the last parts of the dough from the ball. Onto the ball. And now is the part where I need to make some space. Okay, so number 6 is to roll the dough into a ball, which as I mixed my egg in, I was able to do. Okay, so I've got my ball of dough ready on my worktop. Okay. Number 7 is we're going to roll out the dough. Okay, so for that we're going to use a rolling pin. Okay, but if you haven't got one, you actually can use a glass or a mug, anything with a round side. You will actually manage to roll out this dough because it's quite soft. Okay, so important to remember that the best trick is to put a little bit of flour on the surface that you want to roll. So just sprinkle some flour. Again, it's a little bit of a messy part, this. So just sprinkle out flour. It helps the dough not to stick. So you roll the dough around in the flour so it's covered with a little white layer. Okay, and then we use our rolling pin. And we just roll nice and gently. Okay, really important. We go nice and gently with our dough, and we twist it around a little bit. Twist it around so that it stays nice and even and nice and together. You want to roll it out until it's about a centimetre or maybe about that thick. Okay. Welsh cakes in the shop, how thick they are. Because the other thing to remember here is that we haven't used, self-raising flour. Okay, we've used plain flour, so our dough isn't going to rise at all when it's being cooked. Okay, so the thickness that you roll it out to here is the thickness that it's going to stay. All right, so you can see that I've got my dough ready to go. Now, to make the Welsh cake shape, which is our next number 8, cut into shapes. Okay, now you can use any shape if you've got. This is what a dough cutter looks like. If you've got one of these that's a star or a heart or circle like me, then you can use them. However, if you haven't, again, you can use a glass. I'm just going to show you one of my glasses that I just drink water out of. If you turn it upside down, it does the same job. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you don't have one of these. You can just use a glass or a mug, anything with a circular base. Okay, so I'm going to cut out some Welsh cakes now. They get stuck at the bottom and it pops out like that. I'm going to pop them on a board. Okay, so now you see I have all my Welsh cakes cut out ready to cook. So now we need the top of a cooker. We need a hob to cook. Okay, so number 9 on my recipe, because it's good to always refer back to check you haven't missed a bit. Number 9 is melt the butter on the cooker. So, recipe there. I'm going to chop out a little bit of butter. You need a little square, not a lot. I'm going to turn on my hob. I'm going to melt the butter. And with Welsh cakes, it's really, really important that the pan that you're using, I'm using quite a thin pan, you'll see. But the pan that you're using, the most important job is that it has to be super, super hot for the Welsh cakes to cook well. Okay? So this, like I said earlier, is very important that you do this with a grown-up, alright? Very important. You start to hear the butter sizzling. When it heats up, you can start to hear it. Okay, so when your pan is ready, it's important that you have a plate ready to put your cooked Welsh cakes on. Okay, you can just pick up the Welsh cakes that you've cut ready and you can just pop them on the pan. Now my pan is the kind of size that I could fit maybe 4 at a time. Okay, so you don't need to just cook one at a time. You can cook a few depending on the size of your pan. Okay, start with 4. You'll start to see the butter sizzling around the Welsh cake as the bottom of the Welsh cake starts to cook. Okay. Now the other interesting thing about Welsh cakes is that the middle of the Welsh cake will continue to cook even when you take it off the heat, because the type of cooking that we're doing means the heat stays inside the Welsh cake. So it doesn't even matter if it's a bit gooey and doughy inside when you first take it off the heat, because actually it'll continue to cook. Okay. For a minute or so, you'll see, when you flip them over, you'll see them starting to go brown. Okay. It's important you have a fan or a window open now. This kind of cooking does create a lot of smoke and heat. It's important to keep cooking them so they don't burn. Okay. You can turn your heat down because the pan will stay really hot. Okay. Once they're done, you can pop them onto your plate. I'm using like a spatula to cook mine because it's just the easiest way that I find. Okay. And each time you need to put a little bit more butter on. Okay. You'll find that it sizzles quicker every time. And I'm going to sprinkle the ones that I've made with a little bit of sugar. Okay. That's how they're most tasty. Okay. Just sprinkle the last ones. And there you have it. Some Welsh cakes ready for some David's Day. Hope you all have fun having a go. Remember to be really careful and get help from a grown-up, okay? I'm going to go off and taste one now with a cup of tea. Bye everyone.